Hello everyone. We'll be discussing the lecture for week 2, and today we'll be discussing different theories and models of public policy. So broadly we have this number of theories and models of public policy. We'll be discussing elite theory to game theory, and if you see these theories, then the first thing that is coming to our mind is that what is the role of this theory, or what exactly is these theories do in public policy. So if you see all these theory, of course we will be discussing one by one. So these public policy theories, they help us in understanding that how and why government create specific policies or programs or schemes or even laws and regulations. So by the help of these public policy theories, you can understand that how the policies decisions are taken, or policies and program schemes and regulations are created. And also, so in that sense we can say that these theories provide a framework for our understanding that how the government creates, implements, evaluates solutions to the societal problems through its interventions. And moreover, these theories can also explain that who holds the power, how decisions are taken, and why policies undergo a change, or if at all the policies are remaining unchanged. So all these are explained through these theories of public policy. That is the reason it is providing a framework for our understanding. And moreover, these public policy theories can be divided into decision making frameworks and different process models as well. So we'll be discussing this one by one based on this understanding that how they are useful in decision making and the process models. So let's understand what are the typologies of public policies theory. So broadly, this is the public policies theories are divided into three broad groups. The first one is the structural and power theories. The second one is decision making theories, and the last one is policy process and change models. So if you take the first one, that is structural and power theories, so we have elite theory, we have pluralism theory and group theory, and also the institutionalism theory. So we'll be discussing all these under the first category of public policy theory, that is structural and power theories. Okay. And the second one is decision making theories. So under this decision making theories, these theories help us in understanding or gives us a framework that how decisions are made in so far a public policy is concerned. So the first theory that is under this decision making theory is rational choice theory, bounded rationality, incrementalism, and public choice theory. And the last one is the policy process and change models. And in under this policy process and change models, we will be discussing the system theory, and under the change models, we will be discussing three models. The first one is policy cycle approaches, organizational approaches, and policy change and policy learning models. Okay, of course, all these would be discussed in this week 2 as a part of week 2, and the last one, change models, will be discussed in week 11. So given this understanding that what are the typologies of public policies theories, let's understand the first one, that is structural and power theories. So as the name suggests, we can find that these theories are examining that how societal structures and the power, societal structure and the distribution of the power can shape the policy outcomes, right? And in this theory, it is argued that policy is not neutral. A rational response to societal, rather, you can say that policy is not neutral. Rather, it is the result of institutional arrangements and unequal power dynamics among different groups. Okay, so since we are discussing about these theories are based on the structure of the society and the power dynamics of the society, so that is the reason we cannot say that the policy is a neutral one. Rather, we can argue that policy is not neutral, because policy can be affected by the structure, the structural dimensions of the society and the power dynamics of the society. Okay. So, the public policy is not a neutral one as perceived by these theories, and it is not even the rational response to the societal problems, rather it is the result of the institutional arrangement, the structural arrangements that the society is having, and also the unequal power dynamics among different groups in that particular society. Okay. So, now let us discuss the first theory under this structural and the power theories. So, that is the elite theory. Okay. Today we will be only discussing the elite theory. So, what is elite theory? I will be just giving a snippet view of what is elite theory, then we will be discussing in detail. So, what is this elite theory? The elite theory is based on the assumption that the public policy is because of the elite preferences. That means public policies are based on the elite preferences, okay, not the preferences of the masses. So, what is the popular perception about the public policy? Public policy would be there if there is a demand by the masses, or if there are some issues faced by the masses, then only there will be a public policy, right? But this theory is assuming that the public policy is not based on the preferences of the masses, rather it is based on the preferences of the elites. Okay. So, that means who are involved in public policy? So, of course, elites would be involved. Who are the elites? The elites are those people who have power, who have the ability to allocate value, right? And the next question that we can ask, that if it is so, then how the policies are made? Through their involvement. Which involvement? Elites involvement. Okay. So, the public policies can be made through the implementation of the preferences and the values of the elites, those who are governing elites. And the second aspect is that these policies can be made through the public officials, right? But the role of the public officials are only just to carry forward the policies that is already decided by the elites. Okay. So, these are the two highlights that how policies are influenced by elites. So, because policies are influenced by the preferences of the elites. Okay. And what is the role of the officials? The role of the officials is to just carry out or execute the policies that is already decided by the elites. Okay. And finally, if you are finding that this is the way the policies are made, okay, then what would be the implication? Because the popular version of public policy is that the policies are based on the preference of the masses, right? Demand of the masses. But here we are finding that the public policies are not based on the preferences of the masses, rather the preferences of what? The elites. Okay. So, that is the reason it would be having some implications. So, what are the implications that we can find if this is the theory on the public policy? The first implication is that the general masses would be apathetic. They do not have any interest towards the elites and they agree upon norms. So, they would be not very interested for the public policies. Okay. And the second implication could be the political action is just symbolic, because everything would be saved by elites itself. Okay. And that is the reason the elites would be trying to protect the status quo, whatever the values they would be having, and they just want to implement those values through public policies. And if you see this theory, this elite theory, this is in contrast to the pluralism theory. Okay. And the pluralism theory is also one of these power theories that we will be discussing in the next class. So, given this understanding, that is a snippet view of our elite theory. Now, we can think about a comparison, elite and pluralist, because I have already told you that in this pluralist theory is just the opposite, just the contrast to the elite theory. So, if it is so, then we can think about these power theories, two power theories, elite and pluralist theory, in terms of some questions. Let us ask some questions regarding the power theories of public policies. The first one could be, how do elite or elitist theory and pluralist theory define power? Is there any difference? Because we are finding they are just in contrast to each other. And the second questions or research question that you can have is, can they address the contemporary social issues and problems through these power theories? So these are two very vital things to discuss, because if a particular theory is not able to explain the contemporary societal problems, then this theory would be outdated. So that is the reason we can also check that whether these two power theories can still explain the contemporary social issues and problems. And lastly, we can also think about that what understanding of politics does each of these theories give rise to. So what is the broad understanding of politics? So far these two theories are best. Okay, so given this understanding, now we can explain the elite theory in detail. That what is this elite theory? The elite theory is based on these assumptions that public policy is based on the preference of the elites, and it is also reflected by the preference of the elites. Okay, and also the public policy can also be viewed as the preferences and the values of the elites, which are again those elites, the governing elites, those who are actively participating in policy and politics. So if you see, as I told you, that if this is the definition of elite theory, or this is the assumption of elite theory, then it is in contrast to the popular perception that public policy reflects the demands of the common people. So it is not true. This theory is highlighting something else. Okay. So this theory is suggesting that people are very apathetic or ill-informed about the public policy, right? So since they are apathetic, say they don't have any interest in public policy, and they are also not well informed about the public policy. So that is the reason what would be happening, the other groups, the elites, so they would try to shape the mass opinion on the policy questions. Okay, and that is the reason the public policy would be the reflection of the preferences of the elites rather than the masses. Okay, so the public policy would be not only based on the preferences of the elites. The elites' preferences would try to shape the preferences of the masses as well. So you can say the elites shape the perception of the masses as well. So the public policy here in fact would be turning out to be the preference of the elites in this situation. And what is the role of the officials or executives? They merely carry out the policies which are already decided by these elites, since the masses would are least bothered to participate in the policy making. Okay, so here based on this understanding we can find a top-down approach that how policies are made. So here elites are there, right? So they will be giving policy directions, right, to the officials and administrators, and the officials and administrators would be just executing the policy, right, to address the issues and problems that are faced by the masses. Okay, so this is a top-down approach concept by elites implemented here in the ground to address the problems and issues faced by the masses. So the policies flow would be downward from elites to masses, and they do not arise from the mass demand. Rather it is generated by these elites itself. Okay. So given this understanding about the elite theory, now we can think about who are the propounders or contributors of elite theory. So we can at least find very dominant persons or contributors who has given much understanding to this particular theory. The first one can be attributed to Pareto. He was an economist. The second one is Muska. He was a jurist. And the third one is Robert Michels. He was an historian. Okay. So all these three, they try to contribute and strengthen the elite theory. So what is the premise of this elite theory? the premise of this elite theory is that the privileged and the successful people, they will be inheriting the governing powers, right? And what is the reason? The reason is that they have a superiority over the masses, and that is the reason you can find the society would be divided into at least two parts. The first part would be consisting of few those who are elites and who have the power, and the second one is many and they do not have any power. So only a small number of persons, they are the elites who would be trying to allocate their values for the society, and the masses do not decide the public policy, rather they would be influenced by this small number, they are the elites. Okay, so that means we can say these few number, the elites, they will be governing, and they are not the typical of the masses who are governed. So given this understanding, now we can think about, if it is so, that means elites are doing everything, shaping, making the public policy, influencing the masses, then what constitutes elites? So these elites, although they are few in number in the society, they are disproportionately drawn from the upper socio-economic strata of the society. Okay, and if you see, so here in the society we are finding this is the society, and it is divided into two parts. These few one who are the elites, right? So these elites are drawn disproportionately, of course, because these are the larger section. Okay, so they are the masses, and they are disproportionately drawn from this upper socio-economic strata of the society. So these section consist which are having enough education, enough exposure, power, wealth in the society, and they are considered in the hierarchy of the society, they are considered in the upper strata. And the movement, and if you think about that, these are the elites and these are the non-elites, so whether any movement is possible or not. So that means whether from these non-elites, whether they can be moved to elite section or not. So the movements from non-elite to elite positions can be possible, but it must be slow and continuous. Why? Because to maintain the stability and avoid a revolution. So that is the reason elites, this group, these sections would not be even wishing that there would be movement from these sections to these sections. So that is the reason the movement from the non-elites to elites position would be slow, and only non-elites who have accepted the basic elite values or consensus, they can be admitted to the governing circles. Okay, and they, of course, so this process is really slow. Okay, that is the reason where the movement from this group to this group is really very low. So public policy doesn't reflect the demands of the masses, but rather the prevailing values of the elites. That is what we are finding, because even the movement is very slow. And moreover, we can find the changes in the public policy would be smaller as a result, rather than revolutionary. Why? Because only a small section of the society, that is elites, they would be shaping, they would be influencing the policy. So that is the reason, if at all there needs a change in the public policy, it would be very slow rather than revolutionary, because there is no movement and these people are apathetic towards the public policy. So whatever this section would be interested to do to reflect on the public policy, only that much is possible. So that is the reason this, if at all any change is required, this change would be quite slow or small even. And elites influence the masses more than the masses influence the elites. Okay, so we can take the example, some classic instance of this elite theory. And if you see the literature, then perhaps the most famous elite theory can be identified as the power elite theory by Mills, C.W. Mills. It is written, you can see this book. So this work was published in 1956, and if you see that how elites are defined or what is the composition of elites, right. So, according to C.W. Mills, this elite section is composed of three significant element in the society. The first one is the government, second one business, big businesses, business houses, and the third one is the military. Okay, and these three together they constitute the works for its own interest. Okay, not for the interest of the citizen. That is the reason the public policy change would be quite small and quite slow. And in this regard, Mills remarked that members of the power elite, it is very common that they will be seeing each other in social gatherings and platforms, and they will also serve together on the board of directors of corporations, different charitable organizations, and other voluntary and involuntary bodies as well. Okay. So, in this context, we can think about that. He has given some examples as well, that when cabinet ministers, senators, or top generals, or even the military officials, they retire, they often become corporate executives. So, there you can establish the relations that how these they are forming the elite sections to take decisions and influence the public policy. And in the other hand, when corporate executives often become the corporate executives, they can also serve and become cabinet members and other political appointees as well. Okay. And so that means we are finding there is a circulation of elites which helps ensure their dominance over the American life. Why American life? Because C.W. Mills has contextualized or written this elite theory based on American society. But since it is a part of the public policy theory, right, and it is acknowledged at the global level, so now it's time to understand that whether these remarks, these features are reflected for the rest of the society or rest of the countries as well. So, you have to so after going through, you have to think about that whether these features are applicable to the case of India or not, and if it is applicable to the Indian case, so you have to identify and think about appropriate examples for the same. Okay, and so since we are discussing about the power theory, Mills power theory, so we can find that Mills power theory is really very popular. Okay, although there are other elite theories also do exist, but they are different. Okay, they are different. Okay, so the Mills model highlights about the composition of the ruling class, and this composition of a ruling class for other theories are also different. Okay, so several theories, they see the ruling class as composed mostly of the large corporations or wealthiest individuals in the society, and they see government and the militaries, they are there just to serve the needs of the ruling class. So, here you can also see a difference. The difference, that is, it is consisting of large corporations and wealthiest individuals. And what is the role of the government here? So, the government and military are there to serve the needs of the ruling class only, rather than being a part of it. Okay. So, this is what is indirectly suggested by Mill's work. Okay. So, another contributor in the elite theory is William Domhoff. So, in 2010, he in his research he finds that the ruling class is composed of richest 0.5% to 1% of the population. So, in that sense, we can find that what is the composition of this elite group. So, it is only 0.5% to 1% of the population who are considered to be richest, and they are forming the elite group. And this very minor population, minority proportionate of this population, they control more than half of the nation's wealth. They also sit on boards of the directors, as we also discussed in Mill's theory, and they are members of the same social clubs and voluntary organizations, And if you see their control over the corporations and other economic and political bodies help maintain their influence over life, over the societal aspect and over the life. And the same influence is also for the politics and economy as well. And so given this understanding that how mills power elite, what are the components and what are the significance of power elite theory of mills, and here we found another scholar who discussed about similar kind of composition of the elite group, that is a very minority of the populations, they influence the political and economic life. And in this context I would like to give you a perspective from recent studies and data. So as all of us know that there are many research organizations and NGOs, they also are trying to find out that what are the concentration of these elites in the society. And one of the report is published by Oxfam's. And what is this? Who is this Oxfam, or what is the job of this Oxfam? Oxfam is UK based charity, international, and it publishes commitment to reduce inequality index. And while preparing this commitment to reducing inequality index, the 2018 report finds that India is ranked 47th among 157 countries, and it measures the three aspects. The first one is the government action on social spending, the tax and labor rights. So if you see all this data, then we can find that the country's commitment to reduce inequality in a very worrying situation. Okay, and because we can find that in 2018 data, so India was home to almost 1.3 billion people, and many of them at that point of time lived in extreme poverty. But if you see this particular reducing inequality index, and its position is 147th out of 157 countries, then it is really worrying situation for all of us. And if you see some of these statistics highlighted in this report, it's India had been placed 151st on the index for public spending for health care, education and social protections, and 141st for labor rights and wages, and 50th on taxation policies. So you can see that out of 157 countries, the overall ranking for India is 147, and in these three components that Oxfam is utilizing to prepare this overall index is government action on social spending, tax and labor rights. So if you see the first one, that is the government actions on social spending in terms of public spending for health care, education and protection, India was placed in 151st position out of 157. So it spells that where do we stand, where does India stand at that point of time. And coming to the second composition was labor rights, right? And in the labor rights, India was placed 141st out of 157 countries. So again, it is giving a very pessimistic picture that what is the performance of India so far reducing inequality is concerned. And in the third parameter, that is the taxation. So India was placed 50th on taxation policies. So it is giving a better picture in comparison to the previous two indicator. So because India has really introduced some reforms including GST. So that is the reason India is ranked a better position out of 157 countries in comparison to the other two indicators. Okay, and this is so here we can highlight some of the statistics as per this 2018 report. What are the statistics that is going to give a very worrying picture? The first one is wealth of nine Indian billionaires is equal to wealth of bottom 50% of India. So see the inequality level. Wealth of top 9 Indian billionaires is equal to wealth of bottom 50% of population of India. So it spells that what is the extent of inequality in India as per the 2018 report. And moreover, 10% of the population holds 77% of the total national wealth. So again, the concentration of the wealth is at the hands of 10% of population. Again, it shows the high level of inequality. And if you compare these pictures, the poorest Indian states have higher infant mortality in comparison to the sub-Saharan African countries, then it is again the most worrying situation for all of us. And the top 1% of India's wealthiest got richer by 39% compared to 3% growth in incomes of the bottom 50%. So again, that if we will be projecting and we will be thinking that maybe there will be convergence down the line, so it is not going to happen, because these statistics makes it clear that only 1%, top 1% of India's wealthiest, they are getting richer by 39%, whereas there is a 3% growth in the incomes of the bottom 50%. So that means there would be divergence only, not convergence. So again, so that means the inequality will be increasing, not decreasing. So another statistics that is found in this 2018 report is 60% of majority of the population own merely 4.8% of the national wealth. That shows that we need to do some major steps for reducing inequality in India. And since I told you that this Oxfam International, they publish reports on reducing inequality, and as per the latest report in 2024, Oxfam and this report is published by Oxfam along with the Development Finance Internationals. So their commitment to reduce inequality index, and in this report, India is ranked 127th out of 164 countries. So that means here, in comparison to 2018, the number of participating countries has increased. And if you see India's overall rank, so it has also improved. So that is 127th positions. And this position is determined by the same indicators that we discussed for 2018 report, that is public service spending, progressive taxation, and labor rights. Okay. And if you see the component wise performance and ranking, India is ranked 129th in the public service spending on health, education, and social protections, and it is ranked 16th position so far the evaluation of taxation system is concerned, taxation system and taxation policy is concerned. So if you remember in 2018 data, so this rank was 50th, India got 50th rank, but right now India's performance on taxation system has increased, and its rank increased to 16th positions. And so far the third indicator is concerned, that is about the labor laws and labor rights, then India ranked 156th. And if you evaluate this labor rights and the enforcement of living wages in labor rights and wages, then we are saying that there are a lot of things that needs to be done. And these two indicators, it is about the labor rights and wages, and the second one, the public service spending. So we have to do a lot in order to reduce the inequality. So what is the point of discussing this latest inequality report? It is because just to show that whether similar kind of trend as already advocated and found by Mill's theory and other theories is reflecting in recent societal income distribution, or there is some change. So now you can find out, you can now determine that whether theories are still impactful in the recent society, or it is out of the place. So now we'll be discussing some other elite theories apart from Mill's. So other elite theories, they are advocating that the government is more autonomous. Because Mills advocated that the government is part of this elite group. So, but here the other elite theories are advocating that the government is more autonomous and the government is not controlled by the ruling class. Okay, and sometimes the government takes the side of ruling class and sometimes the government takes the side of the common masses as per their interest. Sometimes the government also take the side of corporate interest as well, and sometimes the government opposes these interests as well. So given this kind of situations, now we can find it appears that government is having autonomy, and depending upon the context, depending upon the situations, the government takes the side of the ruling class and corporate interest, and sometimes it also opposes as well. So we are finding so the other elite theories are highlighting that the government is having relative autonomy. Okay, and it helps ensure the legitimacy of the state, because if it always takes the side of the rich, then it would look too biased, and when something is looking too biased, then the government has a fear factor also to lose the support of the populations. So again there are apprehensions that the government might lose the vote bank, and in the next election the government may not be in the power. So that is the reason the government sometimes takes the side of ruling class and the corporate interest, and sometimes it opposes them as well. And however, in the long run, there is a relative autonomy of the state that helps maintain the ruling class control by making the masses feel that the state is impartial, when but in fact it is not true. So so this is already remarked by the scholars like Thompson in 1975. So he analyzed that although by picturing this kind of scenarios, right, which kind of scenarios, that sometimes the government opposes, sometimes it takes the side of the corporates and ruling class, and by doing so it tries to give an impression of impartiality, but actually it is not true. And there are many sources of elite power. The elite can be based on different aspects, like based on wealth or traditions or religious authorities. So you can find out that elite power is concentrated on wealth. It can be concentrated on traditional or religious authority, just like you can think about the influence of pandits and the priests in many societies as well. So that is also a kind of elite power. So there could be many sources of elite power based on wealth, based on traditional and religious authorities as well. And in this context, I would like to introduce another concept, that is democratic elitism. Because right now we are almost all countries in the world are democratic, and that is the reason we need to also understand the democratic elitism. So what is this democratic elitism? So in the modern democratic societies, we are exercising our franchise right at the elections. So opportunities for the masses are there by franchising the voting right, right, for the elites, those who are standing before them, for they are expecting to rule over them as well. So there would be competition between different elites for elections, and participation by pressure group elites is between the elections and interactions with the bureaucratic elites, and they are regarded as, and all these are regarded as the ways in which democracy operates in the modern liberal democratic capitalist state. So here we are finding that yes, there is a competition between the different elites for the elections, and there would be participation by the pressure groups. Different kinds of pressure group elites would be there. There would be a competition between them as well, and there would be interaction with the bureaucratic elites as well. And all these are regarded as the ways in which democracy operates in the modern democratic capitalist state. And if you see the distribution of power in the society, it reflects the inequalities of wealth, and some groups have few resources, and the others have many resources. So that is also found. And some interests are unorganized, some rely on others to protect, like minority groups. So minority groups like minority groups and children, and the other sections could be the homeless people, the mentally ill people, the poor people. So they need others support for their own protections. So they are dependent on others to protect themselves on these situations, like if someone is mentally ill, then how he or she can be protected by others. So that is the case of the unorganized interests. And if you see in this context of distribution of power in the society, there would be groups who would be fighting their battles in this in a particular system, in which there would be systematically loaded uh, in favor of middle or upper class interest, or financial interest, or the interest of the producers or economic group, and they will be fighting with each other. And the organization themselves are inherently oligarchic. That means all this organization would also be in terms of groups. So that is the reason oligarchic form of power would be observed. So that means a few leaders will be exercising the power and are often unelected and unaccountable to members as well. So this is based on the famous theory propounded by Michels, that is iron law theory. So iron law theory propounds that the relationship between these elites are like iron. So it is very difficult to break. However, although we discussed about all these theories, and basically different approaches under the same theory, that is elite theory, there are certain limitations of elite theory as well. Okay, so what are the limitations? The first limitations that you can identify is that it appears that every society is based on this elite preference or elite power concentration, but it is not. Not all historical societies have been hierarchical with an elite. So for example, there are some tribes, and like Acephalous tribe. So these tribes do not have any hierarchical structure. So far the power distribution is concerned, rather all the members of the society in that particular tribal community have equal power. So another example that we can think about, where it is hard to find out the elitism or influence of elitism, or the presence of elitist characteristics, that is egalitarian societies. But however, right now if you see democratic structure, then this kind of society, that is egalitarian societies, it is very difficult to find. And hence we can find that this is also a limitation, that not all historical societies have been hierarchical with an elite. And the second limitation is that it appears as if the difference between the elites and masses are very simple, and it is understood, right? So the distinction between elites and masses is oversimplified, as we understand from the theory. But actually the difference between the masses is not so simple, rather it is a complex phenomenon, and there could be the different factors which can influence each other as well. So other limitations of this elite theory is that it is unable to engage with normative issues of the of democracy and justice. So of course it is a limitations of the elite theory. And instead of taking care of normative issues of democracy and justice, this theory simply presents the existence of ruling elites. Okay, and the existence of this ruling elites is treated as inevitable, and democracy is reduced to competition between elites, that is the sections of the same elite they compete to rule. So this is again that we can find this is a limitation, that democracy is just reduced to the competition between the elites, whereas we are finding it is not fully true. So just to wind up our understanding on elite theory, let's discuss about the implications of this theory, that whether this is still influential in the current societal context or it is out of place. So elitism implies that public policy doesn't reflect the demand of the people, doesn't reflect the demands of the people so much as it does the interest, values, and preferences of the elites. So, what is the takeaway? The takeaway of elite theory is that the public policy is reflected on the preferences of the elites, not the preferences of the masses. Okay. So, it is subject to scrutiny, subject to further research and verification, that in which country or in which society, so far the national and subnational policies are concerned, national and subnational power is concerned, then whether this is true or there is some change. So therefore, the change and innovation in public policy come about as a result of redefinition of elites of their own values. So that is what we need to also understand, that whether there is a change, and if there is a change in this, in the very assumptions of elite theory, then we can think about redefinitions of the elite theory and their own values. So the other implications of the elite theory could be that if at all there is a change in the public policy, so this change would be incremental or very fixed rather than revolutionary, because as we have already discussed, the movement from the non-elites to elites is very slow. So that is the reason that the change in the public policy would be at a fixed scale rather than the revolutionary one. And changes in political system can occur when events threaten the system, and the elites acting on the basis of the enlightened self-interest or the institute reforms to preserve the systems and their place in it. So this is the only way we can find out that how changes in the political system can occur, right? So the changes can political system can occur when there could be some events which are identified, and these events are likely to threaten the systems, and the elites, since they are acting on the basis of this self interest, they will try to bring reforms to preserve the systems and their place in it as well. So this particular phenomenon is, or the phenomenon of the values of the elites is regarded as public regarding. So what exactly is the public regarding? We can discuss with the counterparts of this concept, private regarding. So what is this public regarding? The public regarding can be defined as the citizens who are ranked high in income, who are ranked high in educations, or the citizens who would be having both components, and who consequently have an enlarged view of the community and sense of obligations towards it. So they will be participating in the public policy. So these people who has these features, like highly ranked in the education parameters, or they are highly ranked in both the parameters, so these people have propensity for looking at and making policy for the community as a whole, and the others would be just following it. So in this, opposite to this concept of public regarding, there is a concept called private regarding, and the private regarding emphasizes that poor people, uneducated people, or people who are lacking experiences and skills, they will be hesitating to participate in the public policy. And so you can say that we can say that since they are lacking all these skills and they are poor, they are uneducated for participation in the organized attempt, and they will be attaching themselves to the organizations, and that they are in some sense extensions of the family and the church, right, but they will not be influencing the policy matter, and that is the reason they are less likely to participate in the policy. Whereas since these people who are ranked high in income, education and both, so they will be participating, they are more likely to participate in the public policy matter, and this particular propensity is known as public regarding, whereas the negative attitude, the negative propensity of uneducated, poor, or those who are lacking experiences, their propensity to participate in the public policy is less, so that is known as the private regarding. So, as a result, we can find that a sense of nobleness will be obliged, and this obligation may spread elite values. The welfare of the masses may be an important element in elite decision making. In this context, based on this private regarding, these poor people will not be actively or not even passively participating in the policy decision. So, elitism doesn't necessarily mean that the public policy will be very hostile and antagonist towards the mass welfare, but it says that the responsibility for the formulation of the public policy for safeguarding the interest of the masses, it is shouldered on the elites and it is not shouldered by the masses. Okay, so we are done with the basic understanding of the elite theory, and for and you can refer to understanding of public policy, and you can also refer to Oxfam's report 2018 as well as 2024. This is the latest one. You have to understand the extent of inequality and how countries are taking steps to what is the status of all these countries so far the inequality is concerned, so far their government's position is concerned in reducing the inequality. So I think these are the good sources of references to have a comparative analysis. At least you can go through the reports, CRI reports of 2018 and 2024, to have a comparative analysis that to what extent inequality has been reduced or inequality has been changed across countries. Thank you everyone.